Hello everyone, welcome again to another episode. As we covered in the last session talking about shading, where we took a blanket as an example, today we are going to take another example, which is actually about shading different kind of material and shape. So we are going to take a plastic bag or a paper bag and start shading it together, because paperback has different material, as you know. So I prepared the shape in advance because we are going to talk about only shading. So we have the rough shape as you see here, and we are going to assume that the light in our scene is going to hit from that area, and we are going to start right away. So once the light hits from this area, it means all of these surfaces are going to be bright and these surfaces are going to be darker. And this as well, because this is actually inside, you know. So based on that, I start roughly using HB, shading these area, defining, just breaking down our shape in a very easy way into areas, where as a shaded area and the lighted area. The shaded area, we start adding very simple tone, as you see here. Very simple, just to help me understand that this area is going to be shaded and it sits in the shadow. Very simple, like this. And the same goes for this one. This is going to be bright, so we need very light tone. This is going to be the brightest because the light is hitting from that area, from the top left side. This area needs to be shaded because this shape is casting shadow on that area that I am now currently shading, and start to fade out as long as I go out. So into that direction, to the left. The same goes for the down, for the bottom part. Maybe some wrinkles as well, because the plastic bag or paper bag, sorry, has wrinkles, you know. So when you fold it or you change the shape, it actually generates wrinkles, and these also needs to be considered and also shaded. We have wrinkles here, we have wrinkles here. I'm not drawing based on real life objects. I'm just like improvising here, assuming that we are going to have wrinkles there, wrinkles here, and so on, because as a practice is good. So it's also recommended to draw from like copy paste real life object, like real existing paper bag, because you will be copying one-to-one, like where it's shadow, where shadow is, you will be shading that area, and where light is, you will be illuminating that area, and so on. Yeah, so both scenarios are okay. So you can either try to imagine and do it by yourself, which is a little bit difficult. So if you find difficulties doing that, I recommend you to bring like a real physical paper bag and try to draw from it one-to-one. So moving on. So now, as you see, I broke down my object into very simple areas. Where shadow is, I start shading it, putting some tone with my HB pencil, and where light is going to be hitting, I left it untouched, like here, this area, and there, and there, and there, and there. Yeah. So moving on to the next one, as we talked about shading a blanket in the last session, I'm gonna link it afterwards in this session. We talked about like shading is only about adding layers, more and more. So if we consider what we did here, it's the first layer. Now I'm jumping to the next layer, which is actually shading more or adding more layers. Yeah, which means, like, for example, I can start from this area, which is going to be almost the darkest in our scene. I start adding another tone, because there, so here needs to be really dark, because logically speaking, the light is hitting from that area, so this shape is casting shadow. So we need to consider that as well. So I'm just constantly moving my hand direction, as you see, sometimes this angle, sometimes this angle, which we called cross-hatching shading. Yeah, if you missed the session where I explained all or the most common shading technique that most artists uses, you can check my playlist in my channel and you will find it. It's gonna be the part 1, shading part 1. We covered talking about explaining how many shading techniques we have and what are the most common one and useful one. Yeah, you can check it out if you want. So again, this area needs to be shaded as well. So I can change my hand direction, sometimes there, sometimes there, which we call cross-hatching, as I said. It helps me actually adding more and more layers into my shading. And as I said previously, so not previously, but in the previous session, I don't finalize and finish one area and completely forget about the other. You have to work with all your drawing at the same time. Like, if you finish the second tone here, you need to move there, and so on and so on, to keep your drawing in the same harmony. This is very important, yeah? And here we have maybe some wrinkles. To create the wrinkles, it's not wrong to put some lines here, as I did. See, very simple lines to help me understand, okay, here we are going to have some shadow, like this way, and here we are going to have some light. So when you create wrinkles, you can put some lines to help you understand, okay, where the light is and where the dark area are. And creating wrinkles, if it's for a bag or for a fabric material or anything that you can fold, it's very fun actually, because wrinkles, there is no rules for wrinkles, you know. There are some rules I'm gonna mention here, but I mean, the shape of the wrinkles itself is kind of random, you know, because wrinkles are random. So it's really fun to create them and generate them. The one rule that you need to follow is even wrinkles needs to interact with the light in a proper way. What I mean by that, if the light hits from this area, it means this wrinkle, because it's closer to us, yeah, needs to have more light than these areas. So these rules needs to be applied, because anything, also all components that you have in your scene, once the light source exists in your scene, all of these components from the biggest to the smallest one needs to interact with these light source properly and cast shadow in the right way. Yeah. So as you see, I'm now adding layers after layers after layers. And as you see here, we started already to see some nice wrinkles, right? Layer after layer and so on. This way you create very nice looking shading. It doesn't matter if you are shading a plastic bag or a pillow or anything that has wrinkles in it. It's all about actually adding layers, but not randomly. You have to be aware where you are adding your layers, because the interaction with the light source needs to be physically accurate, otherwise it will look odd. So maybe some shading here. Maybe I increase my shading a little bit at the bottom part. I highlight my lines a little bit because I don't want to lose them. They are very important, not all over. Where I feel that it's really necessary, I can highlight some lines, as I did here, okay? Then another layer. Another one. Some more details I'm adding here, the same as for this one. Very slight small details that improves the look of our bag. Let's move on to this one, to this area as well. I start making some shading here as well. Bag are the wrinkles, or the paper bag has very hard contrast sometimes, especially if it's really not straight. Like if you fold it, it's gonna create very hard contrasted wrinkles sometimes, like this one or this one. So it's actually fully okay if you leave it this way, like for example this contrast, then again very light one, and so on. It kind of like adds some randomness, like as I did here, into our shape, that gives you this like realistic paper feeling, like this one. Maybe a little bit here. We need to be a little bit more careful. Why? Because the light is hitting from the top, right? So I cannot really make it so dark, so I need to keep it as bright as possible, with adding some more details as I'm doing here, because we need to keep this light hitting from that area feeling going on, if I can call it this way. And here should be darker, because the light is hitting actually from that area again. So here we will have casted shadow caused by this item at this part, sorry. And moving on, another layer. As you see, I'm constantly moving my hand, sometimes there, sometimes there, so it helps you, because if you have very crossed line like hatching, it will help you to really have very nice shading and create layers in a very nice way. Some shading here, because I'm assuming we have some wrinkles here. Maybe some wrinkles are right there. Maybe some wrinkles out there as well. See, it gives you this feeling that the light is really hitting from the left. Okay, there we go. So far looks very good. So now I can start adding again more layers. Actually, it's very repetitive approach. So once you are done with the first layer, you add second one, and so on and so on, into so deep diving into more and more details. The most important rule I want to mention here, which I highly recommend, which is actually, as you notice, we started from the very biggest shaded area and moving down or moving up to the smallest area. So which means I highly recommend you to do this way by starting from the biggest shaded area, moving on or moving down to the smaller and smaller and smaller one. Because this way you keep your control all over your drawing, and the chance of doing mistakes is very low, also gets very low. Why? The reason, because imagine that you already added so much details here, okay? And then you notice, it doesn't look good and there is something wrong. It looks odd. It's gonna be very hard to fix it afterwards. You can erase it, of course, always, but sometimes if you are like already used, or if you used already like very hard toned pencil like B10 or B12, it's gonna be very hard to erase. It won't be easy. So this will damage the look of your drawing. This will be time consuming and so on. So to avoid that, you can easily just start with the biggest component, which is, as you see in our drawing, this area. I first start with it, not this or this or this small details. And I moved up slowly after assuring that, okay, my shape looks correct. Then I can move up. So this is my recommendation for you, because it always works for me. And it doesn't matter if you are drawing like a complex object or very simple object, it will always work. Because it's logical, you know? So if you have your shape at the very beginning, from the very beginning, in a proper shape, proper proportions, then yeah, nothing will go wrong at the very end. It's logical, right? So this is my recommendation for you. You can try it out. So this is very good. Maybe I try to add another tone here, right here, because I wanna have this feeling that this part is actually casting this shadow. See what I'm trying to achieve here? And here needs to be darker again. I didn't add too much details here, as you see in that area, because I would like to keep it as bright as possible to have this feeling, the light feeling, you know, hitting from that area. So even if I add some more details, I'm being a little bit careful not to add too much details, because I don't want to lose this bright feeling. It's actually nice, so we need to keep it this way. See, so adding some more detail, but carefully without losing anything. So these bright areas, because I would love to actually keep. This bottom part is going to be dark because it's going to be folded this way. So, which means shadow will be casted, which eventually means it will be darker for us. then another tone, and so on. Now I stop for a second and I look at it. Okay, it looks nice. Maybe I can add some more details here. So it looks nice. Before moving on to the darker pencil, because HB is now very close to limitation, I'm not getting any dark tones that I need to switch my pencil. Instead of using HB, maybe we can use now B4. B4 should be okay. So let's use it. This is B4, okay? So B4, as you know, it's darker than HB, and which actually gives us this dark tone that we are really seeking here. See, you can clearly see the difference now. The same as for here, because here needs to be really dark, as we discussed previously. Maybe I highlight this line a little bit because I would like to have it. Why? Because this shadow will be casted here, will be really kind of dark. And as you see, this shadow that I drew is kind of following this shape, because this is how actually real life light source works. So when it hits the surfaces with a big amount of intensity, like very strong light, the shadow that will be casted will be very similar to the shape that blocks this light source, right? So now adding more details, maybe highlighting the line a little bit in order to not lose it. I would like to keep these details. They are nice and they are adding some very nice details into our drawing. Moving on, another tone. So moving on, the same approach, nothing changes, yeah? It's just repetitive. You do it again and again and again, and you end up having these very nice details as you see. So moving on, highlighting some lines here as wrinkles, because the bottom part will be kind of darker than the others. Here we go. Moving on, so this area I would like to have pretty dark, because logically speaking it should be dark. This is like the most, or the bottom area of our paperback, which logically speaking needs to be dark because the light is hitting from the left top. So this area needs to really be dark. Not completely black, be careful, okay? You need to keep these nice details. But nevertheless, as you see, it needs to be darker to follow the light source and the shadow that is casted by it. So, moving on, as I said, we shouldn't finish one area and completely forget about the other. So I move on to the bottom part of our bag. Maybe I add some more details a little bit. Adding some more wrinkles, maybe. Yeah, this way. Some more details. It's basically the same approach as I said. So the dark area that you started doing or you started putting or generating in your drawing, you just go over and over and over again over all of them to add more details and more tones into it. Yeah. And as you see, we already now started have the feeling that the light is really hitting from that area because we have some shadow, we have some illuminated area here and so on. So now to add some more even darker tones, I can move on to maybe B10, yeah, because I would like to add some even darker area here, which I was not able to do using B4. So that's why I had to change the pencil that I was using. Maybe highlighting some lines. See, it adds something to your drawing. Moving on. Adding some more details just to break this casted shadow a little bit because it's kind of like too hard, you know? So just to break it a little bit with kind of like hint of keeping it. You know what I mean? So moving on. just to break this contrast a little bit by adding even another tone as I'm doing here. Now we kind of like kept it, but at the same time it's not like black and white, you know, so it's kind of like a little bit reduced, which makes it even more realistic. Yeah. We can make it a little bit darker here. It's okay, because the light source in our drawing is really strong, so this kind of hard casted shadow will be generated actually. Yeah. So I'm adding some more small details. It's okay from time to time, as you see here, as I'm doing. Always keep in mind that this area is where the light is hitting, so don't forget and make it darker. You always have to keep it bright, because this is actually what makes your drawing alive and makes it vital, you know what I mean. Light component is very, very important in the drawing. So I take a look all over it, then yeah, I check where I might be still missing some details. I add gradually. Maybe this area didn't give it too much attention, so maybe I can go over it again by adding some small details, as you see here, as I'm doing very, very light, okay? Then again. So now I check again, I stop and take a breath, and yeah, I just check again where I might be still missing some details. Like here, for example, I can add some more tone into it, maybe including that area as well. The same goes for this one. Very, very light. I changed my pencil, okay, to P4, maybe even HB, so would be even better, because here is where we've decided that the light is going to hit. So this is going to be really bright. Even this line is strong, so I can reduce it just a tiny bit. So this is the first time I use the eraser, by the way. So as you see, when you have full control over your drawing, you don't always have to, or you won't be needing, you won't be erasing or using the eraser that much in your drawing, because you have the full control over all over your drawing. Yeah. And again. So we continue adding more layers. So maybe here is a little bit too weak, so maybe we can just increase our shading just a little bit. The same as in here. Another one, and so on and so on. As you see, it's the same approach. You just do it again and again and again and again. Layer on top of layer on top of layer. And this way, you start to create these very nice details all together. Now I want to start adding even more details to the front part without losing the highlight, okay? So these lighted area, because yeah, we need to keep that. Now I am being a little bit more careful with adding details. Let me change my band to B8 or maybe a little bit higher, B12, which is super high, super dark. Actually, I would like to make this area even darker. Yeah. The same goes for here as well, because both needs to be darker. As you see, using B12 now is really giving us very nice feeling and very nice shading. The same applies for this one, because as we said, this area sits in the shaded area. Even more layers, and over and over and over again. So adding some more details into our wrinkles. Maybe I move to the bottom part a little bit. See, I'm now adding some very nice dark details that helps me have this feeling, you know, that it's really paper material. because the paper material, and especially if it's not straight, like if you fold it this way, it's gonna create this very hard contrasty wrinkles, and that's what I'm trying to actually achieve here. See? Maybe our wrinkles at the bottom part are too bright, so maybe I break them down, reduce their brightness a little bit by doing a tone all over it. Not all over everything, but just break this constant brightened area that we have, because they look like kind of odd, you know. So again, another layer. So this is the most important rule, don't forget about it. It's all about adding layers over and over and over again. And so forth. Maybe I add some details by highlighting this line, because it needs to be dark based on the light source direction that we have. Yeah, so diving deeper into details here, it gives us really nice feeling. See? It's a little bit darker, then start to fade out, going down. Why? Because the light is going from that area, from the top. It means this area needs to be darker. Then the lower I go down, this shading needs to start to fade out, as I'm doing here. Here we go. I still feel that here is not dark enough actually. Let me crack it up a little bit. Not to make it completely black, be careful, okay? But maybe to increase the dark area a little bit in terms of their scale and intensity as well, as I'm doing here. See? Simple trick, but actually it gives us what we need. The more layers and more and more. Yeah, let me move on to this area a little bit. Maybe it can be a little bit darker at this corner, just tiny bit. Okay, now is also all is now is all about adding small details, you know. I stop for a second and check, okay, this area can be improved a little bit and this area can be improved a little bit and so on, because our main shape is already done. We have it, actually, we got it, and now we start adding some more details to make it nicer, you know, more realistic per se. Yeah, it looks good. Even more details. We are almost done, I guess. Not yet, but not entirely, because I would like to add even more details. As you see, I am like, the details that I am now adding are getting smaller and smaller, because as I said, our main shape is already done. So now it's really about just adding small details, which makes your drawing even more vital, you know, like this one, or maybe a little bit darker here. Let me switch back to P4, because here I don't want to have like extremely dark tones as I did here. Yeah, P4 is good because this is the front part, so we don't want to make it too dark, you know. Just breaking this contrast just a tiny bit by adding very simple layer. As you see, it's barely visible, but actually adds some very nice details and breaks this kind of like hard contrasted lines that are sometimes generated by our shading, you know. And so on. The same approach. Maybe here we can reduce it just tiny bit. Just tiny bit. And maybe at the corner, as well as this area. The details I'm adding here are way too tiny, okay? Because it's really about now just making it richer and more realistic. I'm still convinced that we need to make this area a little bit darker. Not too much, maybe a little bit darker. Like this way, yeah? This tone is actually nice because this sits in the shadow, so it really needs to be darker. Not all over it, just in some areas will actually do the job for us. Some more. I would like to make this a little bit darker, just tiny bit, because as you see now it looks really nice and darker than this area. Here we go. Just increase the darkness of our wrinkles just a bit. Just break this tone just a tiny bit. Also this highlight is, also the brightness of our wrinkles is too bright, so we can break it down just a little bit, as you see me doing it here, right here, exactly like that. Some more details. Increase the darkness a little bit. Now I changed my pen to this very simple one, and I try to highlight the small lines that I really need, because using B12 or B10, which is, as you see here, is too thick. You won't be able to get this very tiny, thinny lines that you need sometimes, which are here. So as you see, just to highlight these nice details, not everywhere, just somewhere. So where you decide, okay, this will make it looks nice. Yeah? The same as here, same as this area, and this, just tiny bit. It gives you this kind of like realistic, nice feeling. And the same as well as here. Just add these nice noisy lines that gives you this paper feeling. You know what I'm seeking here, what I'm trying to do. It gives you this kind of paper feeling, which is needed for our drawing, because the material that we were drawing today is actually paper. So you need to take the material of your object also into consideration. Understanding the light source and how to shade is not enough. You need to understand and to ask yourself what kind of material your object that you want to draw has. Is it fabric? Is it glass? Is it water? Is it anything? So anything exists, any physical object exists in our earth has material. And this materials has specification, has some features, you know. So water, for example, looks different than glass. Glass looks different than fabric. Fabric looks different than paper, and so on and so on. And these are so the material ID, or the material of your object, needs to be taken care and taken into consideration, sorry, in your drawing. Yeah, this is very important. Now I stop for a second. I look at it from a far distance and I check again, okay, can I improve somewhere? Is somewhere still not looking fine? Like, for example, this can be a little bit darker. So far, it does look good. I can add some more random lines here that gives us, as I said previously, this paper feeling, you know? Just tiny, tiny lines. And this is what I meant by understanding the material of your object. This is way too important. Just simple lines. As you see, it adds something and gives us really nice feeling. Because paper generates this kind of feeling. You can check it in your life, in your real life. Like, not necessarily a bag. You can check anything you want. So even just a piece of paper, just fold it and check how it looks. And it's even much better if you use a light source on top of it, or on the right or left of it, and you see how the surfaces of your paper interact with the light source, because you will see something very similar to what we see here. Any light source will do. You can actually use the flash or light phone on your on your phone. So this will do the job. Any light source will do the job. So see these nice details. I'm not able to use it to add it white with B12 because it's too thick, as you see. So it's not really helpful. So that's why I chose to do this now, to use this pencil, because it helps me get these very tiny small details that I really need somewhere. Here we go. Maybe some very nice faded black line here that gives us this depth feeling, you know, of this age. It's too tiny, I know, very small, but actually gives us something like a depth of this edge. So as you see, it actually gives us very nice feeling. So of course I can deep dive into adding more and more and even more details into our bag. Like, it's really almost unlimited. You can add as much details as you want, and to make it even more realistic and nicer. But for the sake of our session, we are not going to do that, because I said the purpose of the session today is just to show you how to shade this kind of object that has, or how to shade an object that has this kind of material. So this is the main purpose of today's session. And so on, maybe just a tiny bit here and here. So I'm gonna stop right here. As you see, we covered today how to shade paper material, or plastic paper, or sorry, paper bag. how to create or generate these wrinkles, how these wrinkles interact with the light source, and how to make it really nice and realistic. So yeah, this is our session today. Try it out, either this very same example or similar, or any example that you want. Try it out and try the techniques that I taught you today. Have fun, and thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.